This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, June the 10th, Madison County Board of Commissioners. If you would, please stand with me and let's have our invocation. Remain standing for our faith. Commissioner Davis, will you lead us in prayer, please?
Yeah, thank you. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. We thank you for the many opportunities you provide us each day. We thank you for Madison County, Lord. Thank you for our country. We ask that you to stand by our country, Lord, as we go through these trying times with the COVID and other issues we have going on, Lord. We ask that you be with each individual represented here today and their families and provide travel mercy. Thank you, Lord, for first responders and our public safety officers out there standing in the gap for us each day, and our military, Lord, and especially a special prayer for our emergency medical folks as they daily work through answering the calls for service as we go through this COVID event, Lord. And all these things say, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone that's called in on the GoToMeeting app to please mute your phones until asked to public comment. Please mute your phones. Roll call, all commissioners are present, as is county manager and clerk of the court, Mr. Washington. Moving to the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any additions, deletings to the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the agenda by Commissioner Martin, second by Commissioner Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? 5-0, Billy. At this time, we will open the floor for petitions to the public. We're going to phone calls. We're going to unmute the mics and for the phone call-ins petitions, and then we'll open it to the audience. Anyone on the GoToMeeting app wish to address the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Reed.
Okay, Billy, did you get that? Okay, Mr. John, you have the floor.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name is John Reed. I'm the town attorney for the town of Greenville, and I wish to address item 11 that is on the agenda. We spoke with Planner Demps about the issue that's coming before you. We wish to, I would ask the board today to maybe table or not take action on this issue. We would like to enter negotiations with the county as well as the town of Lee and see if there's a way we can continue the services as they have been carried out by the county. And if that involves compensation by the municipalities, that's an issue we'd like to discuss. But I think at this point, the interlocal agreement would continue the permitting, but it would drop the planning and the zoning completely. We would like to see if there's an opportunity to keep the planning and zoning, and if that involves, like I said, a fee by the two municipalities, that's a discussion that we'd like to begin. I've not spoken to the town of Lee yet. I briefly spoke to your attorney and I briefly spoke to Ms. Demps. So at this time, I just asked the board to delay that vote or table that vote so we can have an opportunity to negotiate and try to find a resolution.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. John. When we get to that, we will take that into consideration. Thank you. Do we have any more petitions from the public on the phone lines? Hearing none, I will open the petition from the public from Mr. Donnell Davis. Donnell?
Good morning. Glad to have this opportunity to speak and glad to be back inside the building, not to be on the phone. All right, for a week, I had my phone on. I might interrupt a little bit of the meeting. Sorry about that. But my main concern is what's going on now in the world. And the thing of it is, the time is now. I think all but one have a kid on on this board, and that's Mr. Moore. We have a brother that someone, depression, human rights, right here in Madison, that on our neck. This ever occurred in Madison? I seen on somebody's Facebook said it never occurred in Madison. Yes, it did occur in Madison before. Probably I was about 13 years old. I killed, and we had the same thing. We had guys going to jail. They had looting. They had riot. Now it's 2020. They put on our neck, I can't breathe because I look at the jobs. We had a young lady, heard the meeting last week. She did a job for almost 2 months, Miss Renee Dimps. She never got compensated for the job. We had Miss Pickles just take over for a job. She got a 20% increase. So that means it's not equality for everybody. We had a man got a 5% raise and an employee got a 1% raise. It's not equality for everybody. I have 5 boys in this county. They feel safe? No, they don't. Do I feel safe? No, I don't. We have a sheriff department that's not diverse. We had 2 officers, Mr. Alexander, Mr. Frazier, that no longer work there, that's not on the road. No one look like me, talk like me. I have a store in this community. The only time I see these officers and I beg them to speak is when something's going on in my neighborhood. Do I think my neighborhood is the worst neighborhood? No. I live in Lee. I got more crime in Lee than we have in Madison County, Project Heights. You know why? Because it doesn't get publicized in Lee. We got a mess. We got all these pills, the things that's going on, even to Ms. Debbie Bandit. She has so many pills that she got, and she's a mentor of mine. Is equality and justice for human rights in Madison? No, it's not. So when is the time? When are we going to step up? We go to the courthouse. We still got slave people on the walls in the Carter field. We go to the monument in the city park, even though you don't vote on that. We got a soldier, Confederate man. What he portrayed of? Is that freedom for all of us? Still got a knee on our neck. How can I breathe? At clerk office, don't post it on the board, coming in making more than people that's been there over 20 years. We stay at seniority. We got a position, Mr. Veterans position, never been posted. Over for that. That's the job. It's not equal for everybody. I asked for the salaries. I want to see the difference between everybody's salaries in the county. I haven't got that from Mr. Billy yet. He came and met with me Monday, but I still haven't received that yet. Because I want to see the equal opportunity for everybody. Do I feel sad about this issue? Yeah. And the time is now. I can run the football for you. I can entertain you on Friday nights at high school football. But my thing again, I can't run your town. I can't receive your vote because of my skin. Is that right? Love the Lord, He heard our cry. But as a human being and as a race of people, we far from it. We so segregated, it's even to the cemeteries. You got the cemetery over here. You got blacks on this side. You got whites on this side. 1 minute left. Okay. You go to Conroe Cemetery. Out there in Greenville, you got white side the fence on the outside. It's so bad, it's all the way to death. When is enough is enough. When can we just sit here and think about it? Think about it. It was Nicole, and they had their knee on your neck, your daughter's neck for 9 minutes. Would you stood up now? Would you say something? Would you get out and protest of what's going on? Ms. Walter, Barron, Adani, would you stood up and said something if they had their knee on your neck for 9 minutes? Keisha, think about it. Your daughter, they had their knee on your neck. Your daughter running up and down the road, execution style shooting at your daughter. Get up and beat him and say because he went in the house, I stole something. How would you feel? Would you get up and protest? I know it's black on black crimes as well, but this is bigger than that because these are like I told the sheriff before. Man, him ain't best. But I told him more serving than protecting, not just arresting, but protecting the people. Feel comfortable with who we are. It's not like that. I commend the city sheriff, the Madison County sheriff, because I see him in the project. He humbled himself. He came down from out that seat behind the desk. He was walking around, talking to these kids, interact, not just taking them to jail, but let them know you are somebody. You are somebody. And Mr. Kelly, Brian, thank you. He had the knee on your 9 minutes. Mr. Moore, and your brother, you have no kids but 9 minutes on your neck. How would you feel? How can we change this? How can we change Madison? That's not the same way. How can we stand up for what's right and treat everybody the same? Not because of the color of their skin, but the character of this county. Why do the salaries have to be off? And the positions on the, just think about it, how diverse this whole Madison County, the building department, you got a man, and my last thing, you got a man that's through the building department, Mr. Tony, forever. You got a guy came in, had to take a test 4 times that I know of to pass it, but he's just supervisor. But why? Mr. Tony, diverse. He's used to dealing with everybody. But because we're not able to socialize with everybody, we pick the people who is like us, who's a part of the clique. And it's sad. You know why I know this? Get up 6 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Moore, do you be at Community Bank? You're on the board. Bill at 6 o'clock in the
Mr.
morning.
Davis, I'm gonna have to go ahead and cut you off now.
Okay.
You're over your time.
So can I get any input back from y'all? What you feel about that?
We can't report back in public comments. It's not on the agenda. We
Okay.
listened to what you said, and we agree with a lot of what you say,
Okay.
but we can't respond back during public comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I want to get on the agenda.
I'll be glad to face to face,
All right.
anytime you get ready.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, any more petitions from the public? Seeing none, we're moving to the approval of the minutes. We have a special meeting June the 3rd and the workshop also on June the 3rd.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Kelly to approve,
Second.
second by Commissioner Moore. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? I vote, Mr. Billy. Constitutional officers report. We have any constitutionals here that wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to comment on, I see that Lanigan and Associates is here to give a report about the budget.
Yes, sir.
And I've just got my last review from them a few weeks ago, which shows a clean budget for the Madison County Sheriff's Office. And it's been the same that way for the last 3 years, something that I'm proud of. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And also, by statute, I'm required to submit a budget before June the 1st, which we've done, which this year we're on track with our current budget. We're on track to be coming in even. And the new budget that I've submitted is simply a duplicate of that. Increases is if we have a insurance increase. We're not sure about that, but that's projected, so that may not be there. It may be. And also any possibility of raises, we put that there as well. Obviously, we have to wait to see what happens with all the ad valorem and stuff like that. About that, or why it was done that way, otherwise it's a flat budget. If y'all have any questions of me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sheriff. Seeing no more constitutionals here, we will move on to our consent agenda.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Davis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Clerk, that carries 5-0. Moving to unfinished business, we are going to discuss the COVID-19 virus. Ms. Bassford, are you online?
Yes, Chairman, I'm online.
You have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Right now, our county stands at 71 positive cases reporting for COVID-19. Efforts here continue. We are periodically still receiving PPE gear and distributing those out as needed. We continue with our state and regional calls as well. but we are starting to slow on that measure and refocus on hurricane season, as I've stated before. Over the weekend, we had significant rainfall in the county. In contact with the National Weather Service through that event, we had approximately 13 inches fall in some areas of the county. I know there's 2 areas out in Lee that were heavily affected, and yesterday I became aware of a residence out in Sermons that was affected as well. We do have sandbags and sand available here for anyone who is still needing that. All they will have to do is just come out and make contact with me or Xavier, who is in their office right now, and they can get that anytime they need to. Other than that, that concludes my report.
Anyone have any comments or questions of Ms. Bassford? Thank you, Lee. Stay on. I have something to discuss with you a little bit later in the meeting, please.
Yes, sir.
Well, I will call Ms. Albritton. Kim, are you on the phone today?
Yes, good morning.
Thank you, Kim. You have the floor.
All right. We'll begin our update with a review of the Florida stats. Right now, Florida has 66,000 confirmed cases. There's been over 11,000 hospitalizations and 2,765 deaths in individuals who have been diagnosed with COVID. Florida has tested well over 1.2 million individuals, and the state currently has a positivity rate of 5.2%. Right now, our dashboard reflects that we have 71 cases. However, today we will add additional 2 cases. Since last Thursday, which is June 4th, we will have had 4 new cases, and none of these cases are associated with long-term care facilities. Right now, we're monitoring around 20 individuals. These can increase based on the number of individuals these 2 new positive cases will have as far as close contacts. Testing data for Madison, we've tested over 1,372 individuals. Our positivity rate has decreased to 5.2%. Our community testing will continue. The health department will host a drive-through testing event on this Friday at North Florida College from 3 to 7 p.m. So those that would like to be tested, there's no criteria. Just come and stay in your vehicles. It will be a drive-through event. I do want to remind individuals that as we enter into phase 2 of Florida's reopening, I want to remind everyone that although we can congregate in groups of less than 50, please remember that social distancing requirements are still in force. And if you cannot stay 6 feet away from individuals, please wear your mask. The health department has received a large supply of cloth masks, and we will be distributing those throughout the community, and so look forward to that. And then on a separate note, I don't know if y'all want to discuss anything about the Withlacoochee, but I do want to make note that we did issue a health alert yesterday as the Withlacoochee level of bacteria tested extremely high, and so we issued an advisory. Right now, we continue to test. The health department tested on Monday and Tuesday, and then DEP is testing today, and they're testing for DNA and bacterial levels. I do want to remind all that the DNA test takes some time to come back, and it could be up to 10 days. I believe that's all that I have, and if anyone has any questions, I'll answer them.
And one thing I wanted to, just so the public understands on the DNA test, this will determine human versus animal waste. Am I correct?
Yes, it will.
Help us further pinpoint maybe some of the pollution sources. Anyone else?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
I do want to acknowledge that this was not the result that we are aware of a spill from Valdosta. This is just, we were not notified of a spill, so I do just want to make sure that people understand that that is not the case here.
Thank you.
And just if I could, I did reach out to the city of Valdosta Monday, and he reported, of course, that their system handled everything well and didn't have any issues, but that was one of the things I was requested with Bill the other day too, with the testing, is let's get this DNA testing done. That'll tell us some, give us some, you know, drill things down a little deeper where we're at.
Commissioner Kelly?
Ms. Albritton, Mr. Kelly here. Of the 7173 cases, do we have any, data on how many have recovered, versus that are still, quarantined or affected?
No, not at this time. The department has not put that information out, but what you can do is, you know, typically we're looking at individuals on a 14-day time frame. However, those in the nursing home have tested positive much longer than a 14-day time frame. So, you know, right now we're following around 20 individuals. So if you can extrapolate from that, that can give you some kind of idea of the number of individuals that we are working with very closely to ensure that they are isolated.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, one other question. Tim, I noticed on the daily dashboard that we get from the Department of Health, a couple of weeks ago, I believe it was a couple of weeks ago, reported a 4th death associated with the COVID. But I've been noticing that on the dashboard daily, that's been reduced back down to 3 again.
Yes, I think what they had done is that they had inadvertently said that there was an individual in Madison County that, no, actually, I believe that the medical examiner, I'm sorry, I'll have to research that one, Commissioner Davis, to be exact. I'm getting my counties mixed up, and so it's either as a result of a report that we got from the medical examiner or because they inadvertently had someone listed that lived in Madison that truly did not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Any more questions for Ms. Albritton? Okay. Moving on to the next item is item 2 on unfinished business, is the possible renewal of the emergency declaration. I'm going to ask Ms. Bassford to weigh in on her recommendations on the opinion of the emergency declaration.
At this time, I would recommend we extend the LSE. There has been a lot of discussion on our state phone calls about counties remaining under the local states of emergency. There are concerns coming down from the state that if we were to pull out at this point, any future funding coming down for COVID response efforts, we may not be eligible for. So they are encouraging all of the counties in Florida to remain under local states of emergency at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Bassford. I will open this to discussion or a motion.
I'll move it.
Motion's made to extend the declaration by Commissioner Kelly, seconded by Commissioner Martin for 1 more week. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It covers 5-0, and this will go to our next, it will on the 17th at 9 a.m. We're moving to nothing in public works, so we're moving to new business.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I do have something for Public Works. I don't think we need to amend the agenda, but, Mr. Thigpen, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
I had a call from a citizen over on Christmas Tree Lane concerning some limbs across the road. He said,
On Christmas Tree Lane?
correct, the address is 171 Christmas Tree Lane. If
Okay.
you get a chance, could you take a look at that and see if those limbs might need to be removed, please?
Sure.
Also, Commissioner Davis has something.
Yeah, Lonnie, hey, good morning, Lonnie.
Good morning.
Talked the other day about juniper, and I asked Sherilyn to reach out to Sherilyn as well to see getting a topo of that area or trying to find what the elevations are there, how we can eliminate some of the water, or actually if we need to reach out to some property owners to look at it, getting some retention area there. I think Grimway may have some dry corners there that are not using. But with the significant rain we had the other day, as you saw, you know, we basically started with about 3 foot of water to water. And I think anything we can do to eliminate that, I know the water's got to go somewhere. Also, on County Camp Road, I got a call yesterday. You're familiar with the cut-through road between County Camp and Farm Road. We have some, stormwater runoff from town goes through there. And there was a lot of water deposited in their yard. And, need to reach out to the city on County Camp Road. I know there's some storm drains right there in the street. I was gonna get with the city, or Chairman, if you don't mind reaching out to Mr. Jerome and see if those storm drains are handling the water it needs to be, because apparently that water held in the road for a long time and filled up and then dumped off into their property, so if we can look at that.
Could you give me a more specific location? There's 2 or 3 roads that goes from County Camp to Farm Road.
I can get you an address. I think it was Ms. Boatman's property. Right
Okay,
across-
that's probably where the drainage set was covered up years ago, I would think.
Yeah, right across from, like Commissioner Martin said, right across from the lift station there.
Okay.
Okay, any
Yes,
more?
we can check that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more, comments or discussion for Public Works?
Mr. Thigpen, while we got you, were you able to take care of that problem, yesterday on, St. Thomas?
Yes, sir, they're working on that this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lonnie, appreciate the work you guys are doing.
Thank you,
We're
guys.
moving into new business. We have a public hearing. I'm gonna ask Ms. Renee to come forward and it's on a special exemption application for Celebration of Care Ministries.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll pass these out first. This is, thank you. Authorization from Celebration Care Ministries allowing Ms. Tracy Treadway to act on their behalf of the special exception. The matter went before the Board of County, not the Board of County Commissioners, I'm sorry, the Planning and Zoning Board on last Thursday. And forgive me for the 1,000 emails I sent y'all, but the board did vote 6-1 to approve the converting of the lodge that's currently on the parcel of land into a residential care facility. I've done all due diligence as far as advertising is concerned. There were no surrounding properties that I had to notify, and Honey Lake own all the property around it. They will be acquiring that land in the coming year. So Celebration is allowing them, well, is applying on their behalf to allow that conversion.
And this was approved by P&Z.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If the motion is in order, I recommend that we go with the P&Z board.
I'm
sorry, public comment.
Okay. Yes.
All right.
We're gonna open it for any public comment at this time. Hearing none now, I'll entertain a motion.
All right, I move that we approve the P&Z board's recommendation.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Moore, seconded by Commissioner Martin. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? 5-0. Mr. Bill.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is, item number 2, consideration of agreement between CareerSource North Florida and Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. Ms. Diane, if you would come forward, please.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
So I'm going to use this opportunity to just give you a few reminders. I did put in your packet, your extensive, massive packet for this meeting, a flow chart that kind of looks like this, just to remind you about the public workforce system, where our funding comes from the federal government, and how it comes through the state, and how you guys, the 6 of you, and your counterparts in the other 5 counties around you are responsible for those funds that come in. And so just a reminder of that. So there's 2 agreements that we're looking at today. Let me catch my breath. The first one is between CareerSource North Florida and the Department of Economic Opportunity. CEO is our pass-through entity. They receive the federal funds, pass them through to us on your behalf. And the reason why I wanted to send this agreement to you is because it does require the chief local elected official for the 6 counties to sign it. It has never before asked for that. So that is a difference. There were some issues a few years ago, I'm sure in your meetings and your email updates and your headline reviews, you've seen issues with career source boards. Can name you a few. Down in Tampa, Pinellas, those issues are being reconciled, but this is part of the corrective action plan that DEO has with USDOL. The last time we signed this agreement was 2012. I'm not sure what it is about a global pandemic that made this so urgent all of a sudden, but it did. So here it is, and actually Commissioner Moore is our chief local elected official for the 6 counties as the chairperson of the consortium. So, but I did want everybody's eyes on it. There was over 100 pages of comments submitted. I submitted probably 2 or 3 pages myself. There were a few changes that were made. By and large, there were not substantial changes, though. There's nothing in the agreement we can't live with. It's basically telling us our responsibility when we receive those monies and what we have to do to continue to receive those monies. So that's the sub-grantee agreement that's before you.
Mr. Chair, just to add a comment or two, these are federal funds that come down through the state, and as Ms. Hare said, they go through Department of Economic Opportunity to the local local workforce boards. And we do have the office here, right here in Madison. Commissioner Davis serves on that board also. And in my opinion, they've sort of tightening down the screws a little bit on some incidents that happen, as she said, in other parts of the state. But due to that fact, we have to live with those new rules.
It's all about accountability, which I'm fine with, transparency, which I'm fine with. It just, sometimes things will happen a little bit slower because of that, and that's okay. I'm perfectly okay with that. And we just have to do that in order to serve the people that we serve.
Right, and as a board member, and Ms. Head has assured me that the staff here in Madison can handle these new implementations.
Okay. Let's have item 2 first, and that's the consideration of the agreement between Career Source. We have a motion to accept that agreement.
Motion. Second.
Motion, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That carries 5-0. Now we're going to number 3, and this is a possible approval of the interlocal agreement, the North Florida Workforce Consortium, and while Ms. Diane's there, we'll just carry on.
That's right. All right, so the interlocal agreement is what brings the 6 counties together, Hamilton, Jefferson, Lafayette, Madison, Swanee, and Taylor. And that's in alphabetical order, if you wondered. I say it 10 times every day. I think I dream about it sometimes. Hamilton, Jefferson, Lafayette, Madison, Swanee, Taylor. But this is what brings the 6 counties together and actually creates North Florida Workforce Development Board Incorporated, and doing business as Career Source North Florida. And it sets the rules of procedure for the consortium. Each county commission appoints 1 commissioner to the consortium. Again, it's Commissioner Moore here in Madison, and I could give you the list of the other 5 if you like. But and so they meet once or twice a year. They review our 4-year plan, our 2-year modification to our 4-year plan, our budget. They appoint board members, private sector board members to the board, and are ultimately responsible for the board as it exists. Again, that is what the sub-grantee agreement alludes to. The last time the interlocal agreement was signed, it was 2015, I believe, right after WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, was passed. And so it updated the language to cover WIOA. It was only approved for 5 years at that time, so that agreement is sunsetting in a few weeks. So that's why there is a new agreement in front of you. really about the only changes that were made where we took out some specific references to old laws that were in there that are no longer applicable, made the law language a little bit more general. I hope that's okay. Because I do expect a new iteration, as these things go, a new iteration of the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act within the next 5 years, again, hopefully within the next 2. So just so we don't have to keep doing this exercise. But I also, on the terms, and again, hope it's okay, and Tommy can tell us what the preference is maybe, but I did leave it open so it doesn't sunset. So as long as the governor says that these 6 counties can be a region, then this agreement exists.
Any discussion or any questions on this head? I'll entertain a motion to.
Move.
Motion made by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Martin. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you very much. We're going to jump to item number 5, really. Alan, if you just bear with us, we're going to get the auditors up here and get their report really quick. Mr. John, if you'll take the floor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's John Keeler. I'm with Lanigan and Associates, and with me is Eric Luloma, and we're here to present the September 30th, 2019 audited financial statements. I'm just going to give you a high-level overview of the results. We started our audit field work back in December. It carried over into January. We worked back in the office in February to wrap everything up, and then in March we issued the financial statements and we submitted it to the Auditor General's office for their review. Overall, I will say that we found that the accounting records were in good order. The account balances were fairly stated. We got full cooperation from Billy and Katrina and the whole accounting department in getting what we needed to complete the audit. So real quickly, I'm just gonna assume that at some point you received a copy of the audit, and I'm just gonna kind of flip through and give you the high-level results. The main report is our independent auditor's report on pages B1 through B3. And just to summarize, it says we conducted an audit, a financial statement audit, of the financial statements as of September 30th, 2019. It talks about management's responsibility. Management is responsible for the accounting and adopting sound accounting policies and procedures and internal controls. Our responsibility as the auditor is to come in and conduct the audit in accordance with our professional standards, and then based on our procedures and the results, we issue an opinion. And at the top of page B2 is our opinion, and it basically says that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects. The financial statements as of September 30th, 2019, in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And so this is considered an unqualified or clean opinion on the financial statement. As part of our audit, so that's the objective, is to be able to express an opinion, but as part of our audit, we also evaluate internal controls and compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, grant agreements, and we have a separate report at the back that starts on page J1 and ends on page J2, and it's titled Report on Internal Control or Financial Reporting and on Compliance. And so in this report is where we would identify any deficiencies in internal control or any non-compliance. We do have one finding this year that this report references. It's 2019-001, and it's related to budget compliance. And so in the course of our audit, we identified several funds where the actual expenditures exceeded budget. And, management and the board did not obtain a budget amendment for these funds within 60 days of year end. And so as a result, these expenditures are, they exceeded budget, so they are considered unlawfully exceeding the legally adopted budget. And so we've discussed it with Billy, and he provided a response for us to include with the audit, and there is an action plan going forward so this doesn't happen again. That's our understanding. And so this year, this was the only finding we had. In the prior year, that we had a finding related to EMS accounts receivable and the reconciliation of that to the subsidiary ledgers. And that comment we felt was addressed, and so we removed that comment from this year's audit report. We felt like that was resolved. Outside of that, the only other area that we report on is related to federal and state grants. You typically have more than $750,000 in state financial money, primarily the Department of Transportation type grants. And we're required to report on any noncompliance with those grant agreements, and there was none. We identified no noncompliance issues there. And so, again, overall, we feel like the accounting records were in good order. There are no other issues to really report. I'll be glad to answer any questions now, and if you, as you go through the audit later, if you find anything that you want to ask of us, certainly reach out. Billy has our contact information, and we can address any concerns or questions that you have.
Thanks, John. Anyone have any questions or comments?
Does this require
Do we need a motion to accept the audit?
We traditionally have done that. I don't know that legally it's technically required. It is
Well,
what it is. But
Let me provide it. I meant to bring those copies over with me, didn't make it.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion to accept the audit.
Let me provide it.
Oh, okay. Okay. We'll table this to the next meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Okay, now we're getting back in order. We're gonna go to item number 4, Chief Clayton.
I want to thank Katrina, thank you for your, thank y'all.
Thanks.
Hey, good morning, I'm just keeping short and sweet, pretty much on the 19th of May, back in December, put in the grant for 2 cardiac monitors. The state approved $60,000 of that with a 10% match, which our matching would be, $6,700. That'll put the total project at $67,004.00. So, just gotta ask for the $6,700 matching to see what I can legally spend.
Okay.
And, consult with Billy, but I think we have the money in capital grant out there, which is $10,000, so it won't take $6,700 of it.
Okay, we'll check with the clerk and see if we have the money to do that.
Yeah.
Motion made by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Commissioner Moore.
So so the money's gonna come probably out of our reserves, or out of the fiscal constraint, or out of general fund, unless you have it.
I have it with me right here, I'll show you real quick. Right here in the grant capital.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
It's 10,000, but.
It's in there, that's fine.
So let
I don't need to know that.
the motion.
This is y'all approving that.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you. All right, we're going to go to number 6, properties to be placed on the list of lands available for taxes. I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Washington.
Okay, we recently had a tax deed sale at the courthouse for tax certificates that were owned by the county, meaning that nobody paid the taxes. They've been there so long, the tax collector began the tax deed process. These 2 parcels were not purchased, so they're going to roll into the list of lands within the first 90 days. I just have to have the board tell me that they're not interested in these 2 parcels for anything, so that way you kind of have the right of first refusal. But you can tell me you're not interested, they'll go in there, so if somebody wants to come over and buy it, they can come over and buy it.
Yes.
But if y'all are interested, what you would do is you purchase them for the amount of the taxes that are owed. Usually with properties like this, where no one's paid the taxes, no one's interested in the properties, they're very low properties. They're very low value properties. If you don't purchase them at this time, they'll go through the public sale process. And then at the end of that process, if no one bids on them, you will then get the properties back at through the tax deed process. So unless you had a property that you knew you really, really needed for some purpose, it's probably better just to let the process go forth. And then, because either somebody's gonna pay some money for it, or nobody's gonna pay anything, and y'all end up with property.
So just to give you for instance, one of these parcels is about, I think it's around $7,000 in back taxes. It'll go on the list of lands available for taxes. If you wanted to come in and purchase it at that point in time, you'd have to pay the $7,000. If it stays on the list of land for 3 years, which is what's happened, which is what prompted another item, which was the online auction. When it stays on there for 3 years, it rolls on, like you said, it becomes property of the county. The reason it stays on there for 3 years and the reason it goes on that list is because nobody worth paying the back taxes on. So, if you can get them on there when they become the county and you get them sold on the auction, at least they go on and somebody's gonna maybe start paying taxes on it.
Okay. Do we need to do any action to just on these two properties?
I think, yes, I would think you need a motion and a second to not to exercise your right to purchase the property.
Okay.
That'd be my motion.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Martin, second by Commissioner Moore, to allow these to be placed on the list of lands as we've discussed. Any discussion?
Now, Mr. Chair, Bill, one of these properties were in the town of Greenville, is that correct?
I don't know exactly where these two, one of them I know is here in the city of Madison. I know that for a fact, that's somebody asked about it.
And I think there was,
I don't think it's either one of these.
Okay.
I think both of these are more or less in the city of Madison.
okay,
So
no
we have
problem.
some coming up in July for tax deed sale, that one of those is in the town of Greenville, I know.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
One of the ways you all may choose to dispose of these properties is you can give them to other governmental agencies to use in their purposes. So for instance, a lot of these properties are little snippets, between lots and that sort of thing, and may be useful to the town of Greenville, the city of Madison, or town of Lee for their utilities and those types of things. So that's why what we had talked about before was, when we get the properties, first thing is let's send a letter out, see if any of them need the property, school board, any of those guys need the property, and then if not, you may want to proceed to try to sell it, do what you need to do.
And to that, just to add a little more, the first ones of these that rolled off the list of lands and became the county happened, I believe, in April. And before that, I sent a letter out to all the municipalities, the school board, the water management district, anybody who may be interested in other governmental entities, said, hey, we have these properties, does anybody need them? I haven't had a response yet.
No responses, okay.
That's my plan, is as they roll on, just keep writing those letters and seeing, there may be something of interest in.
Okay. Any more discussion before we vote? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? 5-0.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
It's my error, but I think we may need to amend the agenda to discuss the, situation at the Ag Center that happened over the weekend. I'd like to add that.
Okay. Will you make a motion to amend the agenda?
I am.
Okay. A motion to amend the agenda to discuss the roof and rain, leakage in the roof at the Ag Center. Have a second?
Second.
Got a second? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? 5-0. We will put that on the last item. Ag Center. Okay. We're going to skip, item 7 is offer on a parcel from the clerk of the court. We're going to wait till we discuss our possible online auctions that may change the way we deal with that piece of property. So we're going to allow that we're going to skip over that 1 second. We're going to item number 8, that's a resolution 2020-06-10A, requesting the governor to accelerate the reopening of businesses in Madison County, and that was put on by Commissioner Kelly.
Thank you, Commissioner. Several counties have already submitted resolutions very similar to what you have in your packet. The one I obtained was from Okeechobee County, from Chairman Commissioner Burrows. Their county is very similar in population to ours, size-wise, and they have already submitted that, as well as several other counties throughout, particularly Small County Coalition, which as you know, I'm on the board of directors for. And those have been sent to the governor. I'm requesting that we approve that resolution. And, I have further comments on some other matters pertaining to that, but I will go ahead and just deal with that resolution if we could, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
And I would make the motion that we accept that resolution.
Okay, there's a motion made to accept the resolution to send to the governor for opening, businesses back up in Madison County accelerated. I hear a second.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Martin. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. How fast are we talking about? I haven't seen the governor's plans as to.
Well, that's part of the problem. As you know, we just went Friday, I think it was, into phase 2. At the time, and we did strike some of the language, Ms. Pickles did bring to my attention that the original resolution we had from Okeechobee County was done back during phase 1. There is the move to try to get things going, but we feel that statewide, and particularly in a lot of counties, we need to get things moving as safely and as rapidly but safely as we can, recognizing that we still, in this county, have, 71, maybe 73 cases reported, but we've had businesses that have been hurting, particularly the hairdresser, barbershop areas, the restaurants, and other areas that, and I think that would be something that you would probably see throughout many of the counties, as well as some other businesses. Of course, some of the coastal small counties have got rental property. They did reopen that just recently on Friday, I think. But we need to, and I'll be talking about the money that has been sent from the federal government that we haven't gotten yet, in just a minute. But, I would like to ask us to approve and try to, encourage, as other counties throughout the state have done, to encourage the governor to, let's get this show back on the road.
Sure, as you know, whenever the governor first started the phased approach, he made in his press releases that if there was a spike in cases around the state, he would handle those county by county individual basis.
That is correct.
And not hold the whole state to that. So I think that same thing says or goes that the counties that have a very low COVID exposure so far, not hold those counties back.
That's right. That is correct.
So I think that's the whole intent for this.
Yeah. And that's the way the small county coalition feels it. And of course, as you know, most, even when he started the phase 1, he felt that the majority of the state was pretty level when if you took out the 3 counties of Dade, Palm Beach and Broward, the rest of the state had been pretty level for a while. So that would be my motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
And just one other comment, we being a small rural county, I think, and in my opinion, we should be classed with Dade and Broward and those larger counties.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It'll be 5-0. And that same, item number 9 also is going to be Commissioner Kelly. This is a letter that's in your packet, requesting the governor to release the CARES Act monies. I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner Kelly.
We are now at day 74, maybe 75. I've lost my days recently, but anyway, 74, 75 days since the Congress approved money, trillions of dollars, to all 50 states. The way the Congress released that was every county that was 500,000 plus would receive their checks directly from the U.S. Treasury. Florida received $8.3 billion. $8.3 billion. Of that, 8 counties in Florida are within the threshold of 500,000 plus. They began, of course, as you know, with Dade County, ending with Volusia County. those counties, those 12 counties that I named, have already got their money, and they are spending it now on COVID-related expenses and grants to businesses that have been closed and affected by COVID. That leaves 55 counties in the state, much of which, of course, are within the 39 counties of small county and 28 counties that make up the small county coalition. Those 55 counties, that money totals in excess of $3 billion. That money is sitting at the governor's office, has not been released. There is a deadline set by Congress of December 31 to have those funds expended and or used in some kind of fashion. There are strict guidelines as to how that money can be used. We're saying to the governor, we're asking, pleading daily from the Small County Coalition, please, Governor, release that money, because December 31 is going to be here before we know it. Madison, there is a breakout, I believe you've received it already, from email that Chris Doolin sent out from Small County, that shows Madison County's population would be, or funding for that, our population size in the 55 counties would be $1.755 million. Sounds like a lot of money. And we've got to sit and we've got to try to figure out as a commission and as county staff how we're going to disperse that as a legal means. If we don't do it exactly the way that Congress has set it up, we'll have a debt to the Treasury. We don't want that. But we can't do anything until the governor releases that money. There was some talk a couple of weeks ago that there was the movement within the legislature and the governor's office to use up money for other things, let the legislature decide how it's going to be spent. I think that has gone away now. There's been enough pressure that the governor will be hopefully releasing it, but he hasn't done it yet. Like I said, we're at day 75. The clock is ticking. So I urge you, and Mr. Chairman, I would again make that my motion that we please implore on the governor through a letter signed by you to release those funds as expeditiously as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Davis. Any more discussion? I will say one thing, as I brought it back up, reading it to look, also the municipalities are allocated, and we would need to encourage, town of Greenville would be at 47,000, town of Lee at a little over 20,000, and city of Madison at $180,000 that are allocated. So we need to, if they're listening or on board, to encourage them to come on board and reach out to the governor's office as well.
Mr. Chairman, the Florida League of Cities is on that. There's 144 cities that are in that mix. They have got their allocation separate from, as you already noted, from the counties. But again, that money needs to come from the governor's office.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, do we need to give the municipalities within our county maybe a phone call?
It wouldn't hurt to make sure they're on board with it.
Those are the biggest cities there.
I'm sure the League of Cities is already.
League of Cities is already on top of this.
It wouldn't hurt for us to reach out to our respective.
They're working. I do know the League of Cities is working on it.
Okay. I would encourage each commissioner in their municipalities and their district to reach out to them as well. All right, we'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That covers 5-0. We're going to go to the discussion of our possible action on the ordinance for online auctions. I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Reeves.
Yes, sir. A copy of the proposed ordinance was in your packet. The ordinance has not been advertised for today, so you couldn't enact the ordinance. This is just to get some feedback from the board. And we've also got in the packet a copy of section 125.35, which is statute that controls how counties may dispose of their real property. So what 125.35 does is it sets out how you're allowed to dispose of it. You can dispose of it, there's two main ways. One is, under the statute, you can dispose of it through a sealed bid process where you advertise in the paper, you accept sealed bids. And Then under number 2, if the property is of such a small size and it's under $15,000 in value, you can dispose of it by doing a certified mailing to the surrounding property owners and accepting bids there. But 12535 also allows the board to dispose of property however it chooses to, as set up in an ordinance. And that's why we've got an ordinance here. Now, presently, you have your present ordinances allow you, in addition to those methods set out in the statute, allow you to dispose of it in 2 ways. And so if you look at the ordinance here, the part that begins on page 5, and you start with number 3, contractual option. So our present ordinances allow you to use the contractual option. That's where somebody brings a contract in, we notice it in the paper, then y'all can vote on it. Usually that's used for things such as you have you have somebody for economic development purposes, you want to give them a piece of property. That is where it really wouldn't be appropriate to bid that out. It's not a good way to bid that kind of thing out. So anyway, that's number 3, and that's already in your ordinance. The other thing we've got, starting on page 9, number 4, is the live or traditional auction option. So if you have a piece of property and you want to have the clerk sell it on the courthouse steps, just like they do a foreclosure, you've got that option, and number 4 is already in there. Now, the point of this ordinance is it adds number 5, and what number 5 begins on page 11, and that's the online auction option. Now, the difference with an online, I've spent some time talking to the folks. The reason this came up originally was Taylor County had some success using a website called GovDeals that deals with lots of government property and online auctions, and they had tried the sealed bid method and all of that and had not been able to sell their old hospital. They put the property on GovDeals, and I think they got $300,000. Yeah, so they had some success using it. The way it works is the GovDeals has a website. They have people that are signed up to bid, so you can't just show up and bid. You have to sign up. You open an account there with GovDeals. The property comes up. We then the property comes up with a picture and a description, and then our terms. And so I've seen on the GovDeals website they have right now, or at least several days ago when I looked, they had several properties from the Carolinas, several from all over. And so you've got a picture of the property, you've got our terms, so it'll say, we're not making any representations of warranties, we're not, who pays closing costs, all that sort of stuff. Then and you can put a minimum bid in there. And then the bidders then bid on that, so you have to open it. You say they're going to accept bids starting on X day, they're going to end on X day. And then the high bid of their bidders gets the property, and then those bidders have to get the money to GovDeals, and then GovDeals takes their percentage and sends us the money. So, which is huge, because now there's zero risk of default, there's no collection issues, any of that. What we can do with that website is what the lady told me was that they don't require a contract, but their percentage is 12.5%. So we can either have that added on as a buyer's premium, or we can say we will pay that. It doesn't matter to them, but that's how they would do it, and they would take their percentage before they send us the money. Once they send us the money, then we would have to prepare a deed, record the deed, etc. When you record a deed, you have to pay doc stamps and recording costs, which I think would probably the easiest thing to do would be for us to take that out of the money we get to go ahead and do that. I've tried in the past with public sales to say, we'll just prepare the deed and hand it to the buyer. The problem is when regular people don't understand they have to record those things, and they have to pay doc stamps. And what happens is it gets put in a drawer somewhere and never gets recorded. And then it stays in our name as the clerk's officer. So what I would do is I would adjust that. So anyway, that's how that process works. Now, we need an ordinance that says we can engage in that process. One of the things that y'all had expressed before was that you wanted to make sure that local folks knew about it and had the opportunity to bid, et cetera. So what I did here with this is I've got it set up in stages. So in 5.1, it says that the board has to approve putting a piece of property on this, service, and then the board's going to approve, number one, a minimum bid. Because, so you can see, if you didn't have a minimum bid, nobody bid, and they got it for $5, well, that's not gonna cover your cost of doing the deeds and all of that. Number two, the buyer's premium, if any, which will be charged to the successful bid, fee to be paid by the county, if any. So y'all need to decide which way y'all wanna do that. And it's not a legal issue, y'all do it either way you want to. The lady told me she did not see a difference in doing it a buyer's premium versus the county paying the premium in the kinds of bids they were getting. But I mean, that's anecdotal. I mean, that's not scientific. And then number four, the condition of the closing. So y'all would decide all that. Y'all would say, hey, we're ready to send this property to bid, on that. Then 5.2, what I've got in here is that we would still run a notice in the paper. But the notice in the paper would say, this is a piece of property we're putting it up for bid on Gov Deals. The bid's gonna open on X day, it's gonna close on X day, right? Now, that's not the same as going to the clerk's office, because now I'm going to the courthouse. Because when you go to the courthouse, I don't have to sign up ahead of time. I just raise my hand and bid. Now I have to pay my money, what is it, Billy, 0.5%? 5%. 5%. I have to pay them 5% right then. I have to come back by the end of the day or the next day, within 24 hours, and pay the rest of it. So it's a little different because you got to sign up with Gov Deals to be able to bid. But there are lots of people do that every day. I mean, I think it's just a new system. But it does give everybody fair warning on what they have to do. And we've got in there that it has to be published 2 consecutive weeks. The second publication shall be at least 5 days before the property becomes available online. That tracks the requirements for a foreclosure sale. So when somebody's got property that's being sold at the courthouse steps, that's the notice that people get in the newspaper. So that seems to be reasonable to me. And then now once we get it, we would, once that happens and they send us the money, then we would have to go ahead and sell the property. Now the big difference here between the contract and the auction at the courthouse steps and the online auction, or one of the big differences, is that the way I've drafted this is that any time before, on the first two, on the contract and the sale at the courthouse steps, anytime before you give them a deed, you cancel it, just give them their money back if they paid you a deposit, whatever. If we send a piece of property to be auctioned at Gov Deals, and they get us a bidder that bids our minimum price, now we gotta go through and close that. So y'all need to make those decisions before we send it. You need to understand that that's a final decision. If you send a piece of property and they get you the minimum bid and all of that, you're going to owe Gov Deals that 12.5% irregardless, because they've done what they said they were going to do. They brought you somebody who can pay it. Now, and I asked the lady, I said, well, what happens if your bidder doesn't pay you? And she said, well, we have a system that they are never allowed to bid on Gov Deals again. She said, we have not had that much. People understand that, and they don't bid. But anyway, that's not our problem, if that happens. And then the next time we see it, we're getting money wired into us, which is the net amount there, and then we have to do it. So I think it's a good system. I think it's something that, it's certainly something worth us trying and seeing what we can do. I also asked her, I said, now, if we have, a lot of what we're looking for are these little snippets of property, places that may not have much value. Is that what y'all do? And she said, yes, they do that for Duval County right now. That's how Duval County apparently gets rid of the properties they get on taxes. So I think our job is going to be making sure our list of conditions that we publicize is good, that we have a good standard list of conditions, and making sure that we set our minimum bid appropriately, which is probably going to be harder at the little properties than the big ones, because a little piece of property, you got to figure out, okay, well, what are our costs going to be, and then what's their fee, and now it's going to generate enough money to cover our costs and still get this property back out into circulation. I would assume with the smaller, like little snippets of property, even if we don't end up making any money, the fact that we get it out and people paying taxes on it is probably a good thing. And I think that's it. So the addition is the part about the online auction. Does anybody have any questions on how that would work?
I follow Gov Deals some, and actually bought some merchandise from them, and they have a huge following that's nationwide, so.
How does the signing up to bid, how does that?
Simple.
Okay, it's not hard. And you don't have to post a bond or anything, you just sign up.
But they make it very clear if you bid and are the winning bidder, and it's in any auction. If you don't follow through, then they cancel your membership and you're through.
Yeah. So if y'all wanted to proceed, the next step is to instruct us to go ahead and notice it in the paper, which we would, where y'all could enact the ordinance. And once we've enacted the ordinance, then we'll bring properties to you to be disposed of by that process, and y'all can decide, and you would decide.
Which process? I mean, we would still have the option of whatever process.
Whatever process you want.
Sure. This is just giving us that extra option.
And you have to choose which process per property. So, and we can bring you a list of properties, and y'all can say, yeah, this whole list we want done blank, but y'all have to, you have to specify which property you want by which method.
Would all this be monitored through the clerk's office?
What I would do is present you guys a list and a picture, and say, here's the property, here's where it is in the county, so that way you guys know, and we'd like to dispose of those properties. Because essentially what you end up with, and you keep saying little snippets, and he's right, what you end up with are things like, where somebody had a piece of property, road came through, and now they got a little sliver on the other side of the road that's no use to them, and it became a separate parcel at some point in time, and nobody ever paid the taxes on it, now the county owns it. And it's really no use to us either. You end up with some weird parcels like that. Some of them are just, things that were in an estate.
Right.
That the bill's going to somewhere, nobody knows where it's going, and the tax aren't being paid on it. That happens more often than anything else.
And then sometimes there's things, you've got a house that's become way run down, and it would cost so much to get the house fixed up, it's not worth paying the taxes anymore. And those present a special challenge, because then.
We've had those.
Yeah.
We have one currently.
Yeah.
And so what do we do? You hate to sell it with that, because then what if they don't fix, the next owner doesn't fix it, or do we put county money in there to fix it, or at least get it torn down and then sell it? That's a policy decision.
Well, another example.
One way or the other.
One way or the other, yeah.
Another example would be like what's on the agenda today is that you take property that's basically landlocked and nobody else has any, not even access to it.
Right.
Other than the property owner that's landlocked.
Right.
And that
we
one.
have a decision on how to dispose of that one as well.
That's right, and that one may be more appropriate for y'all to use that other method, which is sending the certified mail notices to everybody around there. That's why that method exists, because you do end up with these little pieces that are landlocked.
So can we do that by consensus, or do we need to motion to?
By consensus, if y'all want us to put it on the, get it noticed, we'll get it noticed for the next, regular meeting.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, we're going to go back and we have item number 7. There's a parcel, there's been an offer on a parcel of property. I'm going to turn that over to Billy.
Okay, if you look in your packet, you have the email from Mr. Dan Brown and a picture. Picture kind of gives you an idea where it is. Mr. Brown owns the land around it with the exception of the little corner that's cut out of this L-shaped piece. He owns the land around this. He wants to purchase it, but I understand there may be someone else who's interested, just in all fairness. And the other party that's interested, I believe, is local. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's local.
So, Mr. Brown, I think, lives in Tampa. He owns this property. I don't think he lives here. I'm not sure about that. But I'm just bringing it, he asked about bringing it to the board. I said yes, and let him know what y'all's decision is, because I knew that the online auction was also coming up at the same time. So.
Well, that's why I moved it around, so we would have that option. Mr. Martin, do you have someone?
Yeah, somebody called me about it. That's actually a resident in Madison County was interested in it. I think we need to fix it so somebody locally can bid on it too.
So on this particular parcel here, if we notified the surrounding property owners and advertise it, that would give everybody an opportunity that was interested in that. Yeah, right.
And we can, just like how you can do it over there on the steps. I mean, if you know you got two people interested, the reason that the online auction, I was trying to pursue that is because a lot of times nobody's interested in those parcels, and I sit there at the courthouse steps all day in auctions, nobody's gonna buy them. But we know we have people interested here, and they both show up, so y'all can set a minimum bid price, and I can start right there if that's what you wanna do, and if that's what the board wants.
Well, I think that would be the thing to do if you have, you know, two people interested to
Right,
pursue it,
yeah.
continue with, notify the surrounding landowners and set up a auction date, and you.
Well, you got two separate things there. Now, one is, I can do certified mail notices to all the adjacent property owners, and then you deal with just the adjacent property owners. The other is, you're gonna do a sale at the courthouse steps, like you do a foreclosure, which that's just an ad run in the paper. So you got one or the other. Now, once that ad's run in the paper, any of y'all can call anybody you want and say, hey, take a look at the paper, you know, you got, this is coming up, whenever, you know, it's running the paper.
So, the adjacent landowner is this guy. So if y'all decide to run an ad in the paper, I'm gonna call this guy regardless to let him know your decision today. So, I mean, he's gonna be notified, so.
Yeah.
So if y'all just wanna run an ad in the paper, you can call, and I'm gonna notify this guy.
Let's do an ad.
Yeah.
Do you have a, I'm gonna need a, minimum bid,
Yes, sir, Tom.
And, Mr. Chairman, if y'all can, make that decision today, you can instruct the clerk that we're gonna use the traditional auction method. We've already got a description, we've already, we're gonna set the time, date, and place of the sale. I think what y'all are saying is just at the earliest opportunity, once we run the notices. We need a minimum bid. The ordinance provides it shall not be less than $100. But you may wanna, do we know what the property appraisers value this property at?
I do not know.
Well, you know, you already
have an offer
one
there already.
You already have
We
an
already
offer.
have an offer
Yeah,
for $1,500.
Would that, be agreeable? Set that as a minimum bid, you already got an offer there.
Or would you wanna set it lower and let it get to that point? I mean, I don't know, this may be this guy's maximum bid for all I know, I don't know. I have no idea, really.
Probably be good to see what it's on the tax roll for.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, I was wondering what the tax.
If y'all give me a minute, I'll look it up real quick while we're, if y'all wanna pass this for a little bit and come back to it.
Okay, we'll do that. We will move to item number 11. This is review and possible approval of interlocal agreement with the building department for various services for Madison County between the town of Greenville and town of Lee.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Reed, the attorney, called about that, asked if we could delay action on it. We still want to do that, or just discuss it, or what? It made this public comment.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
I think with our notices, the old interlocal agreements expire the end of this month. Is that right, Ms. End of this week. So, you certainly can, it is within the board's discretion to delay and not take action. I think though, at the end of this week though, after the end of this week, you wouldn't be able to do the inspections in Greenville, or Lee without an interlocal agreement in place. Now, is that gonna kill anything? You know, you're talking about a week gap there before our next meeting. I don't know that kills anything, but y'all just need to understand that.
I think we discussed it numerous times and had sent letters and notices to both, City of Lee and City of Greenville, quite a few times, and made sure we had pretty much made our situation, pretty standard with them.
Right.
Would it be possible, I'm sorry, Chris?
The guy that called this morning, he was the attorney for Greenville.
Attorney for City of Greenville.
The city of Greenville.
He's still on.
Would it be possible, because this agreement has to do with building inspections and all that kind of stuff, so if we approve these agreements, that would continue to run, and we can come back and negotiate another local agreement for the planning and stuff, would that be Because before, weren't they both tied together?
Yes.
Before we had one interlocal agreement that provided both.
So we could,
Is there
we
something
could.
wrong, anything
the
wrong
one-
with having two interlocal agreements if we're gonna renegotiate with Lee and Greenville on the?
It's just as valid either way.
So the one would continue to run, but we could table, I'd move we just table it till the next meeting, which is 24th, if that's all right.
You saying table the whole thing?
No, I'm saying, if you're gonna have the one agreement, as Commissioner Davis was asking, if I understand that, would continue to run, am I understanding that right?
The present agreement is
Right.
for building and zoning. That
Correct.
present agreement expires the end of this week.
Right, okay.
So that, at the end of this week, if y'all have done nothing, there's gonna be no agreement covering building or zoning. And I think what's on the table right now is an agreement with each of them covering just building. Now, if you decide to enact that, there's nothing saying you can't come back later and do a new agreement on zoning. You can certainly do that.
We could follow through with the building inspection, and then if we wish to renegotiate.
Mr. Chair, if I may, is Mayor Bell or John on the line?
Yeah, we're here. Yes, good morning. This is John Anderson and Mary Eddie Bell and Lee.
So I had a conversation with John last night, and, I think correct me if I'm wrong, John, the town of Lee approved this interlocal agreement for the building inspections, at y'all's last meeting, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Would y'all have any opposition to approving this agreement today for the building, and then we can come back and negotiate on the planning and zoning on another agreement?
Yes, that would be fine. We, certainly do approve of that. We go ahead and continue with the building, permit process that's set in place. But, we definitely would like to, move on with negotiating with the county as far as continuing the zoning services.
And it's my opinion, Mr. Chair, if we approve this agreement today, it's not going to delay any other building inspections, any other type of agreement.
Greenville doesn't sign it, that means their part of the agreement doesn't go with that.
It's true.
So I guess that's, Mr. Reed, if that's appropriate.
Yes. Mr. Reed, are you still online with us?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
I don't know if you can hear very well, but what we're looking at doing is going ahead and continuing with the interlocal as it's written, and then come back and possibly renegotiate as far as P&Z goes. So that
Yes,
way
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and I did hear Attorney Reeves' explanation. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I think it would be okay moving forward with what we have today and continue to negotiate. And we can either come back with a separate agreement or a superseding that encompasses both issues.
Thank you, sir. That being said, for discussion.
I guess if we had John or if Renee had anything they wanted to mention on the agreement, anything.
Well, wait a minute, I'm a little confused here. Then a couple of weeks ago, we decided to do away with the planning and zoning for Lee and Greenville. Was that my understanding?
Yes, sir. What we had was, we had an interlocal agreement with both cities. That interlocal agreement said that the county would provide building services and planning and zoning services for both cities. And the way we were providing that was that if you needed a building permit or you needed zoning approval or something, you'd come to the county office, you'd apply with the county, use our staff, et cetera. The board decided that it was not interested in continuing on these same terms with the planning and zoning service. Now, you didn't have the option of voiding out part of that interlocal. You had to give notice and cancel the whole interlocal. So we canceled, so we gave that notice. And that notice runs the end of this week. So the end of this week, if y'all do nothing, you're not gonna have an agreement for building and you're not gonna have an agreement for planning and zoning. What the interlocal that's before you, puts back in place the agreement just for building services.
Okay.
And I don't think there was ever any issue that we could do that economically and all of that, the building services, because the Florida Building Code is the same everywhere. It's the same in the county versus the city versus everywhere else. Planning and zoning is different between the cities and the county.
Right.
They have that. And so if you enact this interlocal, if you approve it, you'll put back in place the building services.
Okay.
And then we're talking about coming back, let everybody renegotiate, see if we can come back with another interlocal dealing with the planning and zoning, because that may need to be changed. That wasn't working as well.
Okay.
See, what my logic was on this is, instead of having them wrapped into one interlocal agreement, if something goes wrong on either one, then the whole thing's dead. But if you got two interlocal agreements, one for building and another for P and Z,
Okay.
then, that's probably more.
Everyone understanding on that? Okay, we will entertain for a motion.
Motion to approve the interlocal agreement.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Davis, second by Commissioner Moore. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Carries 5-0.
Okay, and that, Mr. Chairman, that was both interlocal agreements?
Sure.
That was both
That
interlocal?
was Lee and Greenville, yeah.
Okay, but just for the building.
Just for
Bill.
Just for building.
Just for Bill.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
How does that affect anything I have going currently for the town of Lee, town of Greenville, if my portion ends this week? Did we just then vote?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think for any approvals that have already been applied for, so if you've got an application in by the end of the week, I think we still carry forward and complete that. But any applications that come in after the end of the week, you would not process those applications.
Okay, what about any questions like email research? I just met with Kip Begman apparently yesterday, and I know that's gonna be ongoing with my team.
I think if there's no application in-house, then you need, starting Monday, you need to redirect them to the various towns. Yep.
Okay.
And then if there's an application in before Monday, then we go ahead and carry that on. Because the application, we would have already gotten to see, we would have already started working on it, all of that, so I think we need to carry that on. Now, if the cities would prefer to handle that themselves, I think they're free to handle it themselves. I'm not saying we would not allow them to handle it if they wanted to, but, I think our obligation would end at the end.
I do know with town of Greenville's situation, they have no one.
Right.
He used to be the go-to person for, any applications or anything. With her being no longer at the town and there's no one there at the town to assist them, what we do in that situation. I'm not one to just leave somebody hanging.
And I think what both the city council and the county commission are gonna have to do is work kind of quickly and try to renegotiate something. Because, it's not, the point of an interlocal agreement is we all get together and work together and try to do what's best for the people. But in final analysis, it's not it's not the county's responsibility to do planning and zoning in the town of Greenville. So that would have to be worked out with an interlocal.
I would like to ask the board, to take into consideration when you're negotiating that. I have handled planning and zoning fall free up until this point, and I'm a one-person team. And, I know Brian had wanted to take it off of my plate because of the potential moving out to EOC, but that's no longer on the table. But, one of the things I did discuss with, I've talked to both municipalities separately, and of course, their take is they want to keep it where it is. And when Jeannie took this on, when she was the planner, of course, there was compensation for her. When I came in, I didn't come in making what Jeannie made. So I would like for the board to take into consideration my salary, because, like I said, I'm a one-person team. I don't have anybody that does all my administrative work. I do that all on my own. I make the site visits. I stay in communication with individuals. So if you would please take that into consideration when making negotiations, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Absolutely. Okay. Moving on to item 13, that would be.
Want to get back to the.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that.
Did you get,
So looking at the property appraiser's website, they have the land value at $2,757. They have the extra features, which would be, there's a house that looks like it sits on two parcels. I don't know if it really does or not. Just their best guess where the lines are at $1,501, which brings their assessed value to $4,258.
Definitely need to start more than $1,500.
Right.
That's
why
you guys.
Yeah.
However y'all want to do it.
I think we ought to go at least two thousand.
Mr. Chair, I need to drive by and look at this. I'm gonna assume that the house is abandoned.
I think so.
Probably
I don't know for sure. From what I understand, yes, but I don't know that for sure.
So you want us to make a motion to table this for our next meeting, for 2 weeks?
Well, we're gonna meet next Wednesday.
I was gonna bring that up in my comments.
We got another item down here that we may or may not.
I don't wanna be the holdup on the issue, but I'm a little bit concerned.
I don't know that it's an emergent, thing if we just table it for our next regular, table it for our next regular meeting.
Okay, if we can do that, I would appreciate it.
Okay. Next is going to be item 12. I'm just about to overlook this. Consideration to authorize the chairman to execute extending local state of emergency resolutions. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Pickles.
Lee Ashford and I have discussed that what we've been under has been pretty unprecedented. We've never really been under a local state of emergency for this amount of time before. And as you're aware, they have to be extended every 7 days. What we discussed was the board considering authorizing the chairman to extend those local states of emergency, sign those resolutions on the weeks in between regular meetings, to keep from meeting weekly as a full board. And this would be at the recommendation of the emergency management director, whether or not emergency management felt it needed to be extended. And of course, it would still be brought before y'all as a full board during the regular meetings, but those in-between weeks, if it's still recommended to be extended, the chairman could be authorized to sign those without meeting as a full board.
And that recommendation will come from
Emergency management, right. Who stays in contact with the state and everything else.
Is that something that we can do, Tommy?
Yes, sir, I believe you could.
Mr. Chairman, that would be my motion, since we've already authorized the chairman to do other, resolutions, I think that is in order, that would be my motion.
One second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed? So I'll be meeting every week with you guys want. I appreciate that.
You get paid.
Well, you pay, that's what you get paid to be much more.
I hear you. Okay, we're gonna go to number 13, will be the Ag Center leaking roof. Mr. Rick, you have us some words of wisdom, sir?
I don't know that I have any words of wisdom. This thing goes back a long ways, and I think you guys are all very familiar with it, and what has happened years ago with the $500,000 grant that we got, limited amount of money to do what we needed to do. We did the best we could with it at that time. That didn't solve all the problems. We've had water leaks on and off for the last 4 years. And lately, we have not had issues there, but we've had them pretty significant before. And we've done a lot of activity to try and take care of all of it. What we never did was take care of anything on the rest of the building other than the roof over the administrative offices. That's what we did, and we did that. We thought when we first started having roof leaks that that's where all the water was coming into the building, was through that new roof that we put on. So we kind of helped Ben Ewing to the fire a little bit and said, Ben, you need to fix your roof. He spent a lot of time out there. Mr. Rutherford and I, Mr. Sessions, and other folks have spent a lot of time out trying to determine where the water's coming from. And part of what we did when we put that roof on, with the limited amount of money that we had, is we put that roof over the existing roofs that were there. There were 2 other roofs there at that time. And that's part of what has really aggravated the ability to pinpoint where this is coming from. If you can imagine 3 different layers with maybe different leaks in each one, and try and figure out, okay, the water's dripping down here, but it could have come from anywhere. And trying to, so it's taken a long time to make sure that that flat roof really was good. And we're pretty sure that that flat roof is good and that we don't have issues with that. What we have determined is we believe the water that's coming in is coming in from the main arena roof, dripping down off the edges where there used to be gutters. Rusted away years ago. There's very little evidence that there were gutters there, but there were gutters. And that water would catch it, and I have no idea where it went when that gutter caught it, because that stuff is long gone. But we have some issues where the roof comes down like that. It doesn't overhang. It stops with a flashing. And it can wick up underneath that, drop down inside it. The top of the bleachers get wet in quite a few different places in there. And
we believe that's the water that's coming in and going off those bleachers and going off on another roof and going down in and getting everything wet inside the administrative offices. The good news is we don't believe we've damaged anything terribly out there. It is a severe aggravation. I understand that to everybody. It is to me. Mr. Rutherford has been frustrated with it. He's been up on that roof with us too, trying to figure out everything that's going on. We've had some pretty good people taking a look at it. And, we have put extra flashings around, and we have put a lot of extra sealer and different things to try and make it work. Nobody predicted the amount of rain we were gonna have this past weekend. And, I didn't even think about it till I got the phone call on Monday morning. Yeah, we had water in there again. If I had even thought about that, it'd been so long since if I had thought about it, I'd have been there first thing Monday morning. Well, we got the phone call. Sherilyn called me and said, Rick, you need to go down there. So I went down there and took a look at it. A lot of ceiling tiles had gotten wet, fallen in. Some puddles on the floor. Don't believe we damaged any furniture. No sheetrock that's going to have to be replaced or painted and all that kind of stuff. So paperwork maybe that got damaged, and I don't know how to quantify that for you, but some of that. But yeah, it was a mess. We had talked about some things that we wanted to do to fix that. I had talked about that with Mr. Kaufman, that we had hoped to get money in the last grant application we did to extend the back of that building and take some of that money and work on that main roof and work at doing this to do some things to get it out, but that grant didn't happen. And with that, now we're having to come up with, okay, what do we want to do and how are we going to get the money to pay for it? So, but what we're going to do is a two-part process. There's two issues going on. The first thing that I have suggested that we do, and again, Mr. Rutherford and I talked about this a little bit. He says, Rick, I think that's the best Band-Aid. He says, everybody needs to understand this is still just a Band-Aid. This is not a 50-year fix on a 75-year-old building. This is a Band-Aid, but it ought to last quite a while. One, put new gutters back up on the main arena down both sides. And with that, have a flashing that goes up underneath the existing roof, so any wicking that we get underneath, we'll hit that flashing, go down in the gutter, and we stop that water from dripping down inside the building. I think that's gonna do us a lot. What I wanna do with that water is take it through gutters and downspouts off of the building completely. We got the whole front half of that arena, the end towards the administrative building, goes onto the livestock sides, and then come down on the flat roof. So it's all coming down on that flat roof, which is an awful lot of water. We want to take those and extend them off the building down to the ground, so that's not going to be an issue. We're going to keep a lot of water off of that roof, so that's a big help. The gutters on the front of that, if we can figure out how to keep them clean, we're going to try and do that. We've got sycamore trees and other trees that fill up the gutters. I think those gutters are adequately sized. The downspouts are adequately sized. And if the downspouts can't handle all of it, they are open-ended gutters, so the water will shoot off the ends if it gets more than what the downspouts can handle. They get plugged up, so that's just a maintenance issue. That's not something that we're trying to fix now. We'll figure out how to do that. The second part of it is the solid waste building. This past year had their roof done. A lot of leaks out of solid waste, water coming in there all the time. Ben Ewing was the low bid on a proposal out there to seal that roof. He put an elastomeric coating over the whole thing. He replaced the skylights with new lenses, put new screws in everywhere, patched everything up. And this past weekend, it didn't leak. So I thought that was pretty great. I have asked, as the second part of this thing, I talked to 3 different roofers about putting the gutters and the downspouts on. I want them also to try doing the elastomeric treatment over it and do basically the same scope of work that Ben Ewing did on the soil or on the waste building, solid waste building, so that we can seal the whole top of that roof. If you've been in there in the rain, you know it drips in various places. The skylights are old and faded. We'll end up with more light in there, and it will then be waterproof. Again, it worked on the other building. I don't know why it wouldn't work on this. The fasteners may be a little bit different. Ben tells me that roof on the old ag building is riveted on as opposed to screwed on. So we'll probably just seal around those rivets and then put in additional screws to make sure it's all going to stay put. But I think that those two things are gonna help us a lot to do this. Can I guarantee you that this thing is not gonna leak? When we spend the money, I can't guarantee you that. But based on everything that we have seen so far, if we can keep the water out of the arena, I believe that we won't have water coming in that can get into the administrative area. That's what I really believe is gonna happen, and Mr. Rutherford thought that was the best thing to do too. I would have had him here this morning, but, he wrote a letter to you that I think you had in your packages last month. It says, you know, it was a Band-Aid, we need to do something else to address this, and we have talked about that. I know, Commissioner Kelly, you spoke with Mr. Rutherford about it for a bit. That's the plan that we kind of have, in place, and I've got 3 bids. Ben Ewing is gonna get us a number on it. O'Neill Roofing out of Lake City is gonna do it, and Gutter Solutions and Waterproofing out of Tallahassee are the 3 companies that I have asked to bid on this, and give us a price for the gutters and downspouts and also for the ceiling. So hopefully by the next regular meeting, I'll be able to present some numbers to you and what that's gonna cost. Paying for it's a little bit different too. First question I know you have is, you have any idea how much this is gonna cost? Mr. Rutherford and I talked about that, and I think Mr. Kelly too, and we're looking at the order of $50,000 or $60,000 maybe to do this on that building. It's a pretty good chunk of change. About $25,000 to do it on the solid waste building. Until I see some numbers, I really don't know what it's going to be, but I will present those to you at the next regular meeting, or whatever information I have at that time, I will present to you. And then we'll kind of go from there, but one of the things that we'll have to think about is how are we going to pay for this, if it's something that we can do. In the meantime, I've ordered 80 ceiling tiles to go back in. Hope it's not going to have we're not having another rain event like we did. We've had a lot of small rain events that didn't leak, didn't cause us any problem at all. I will be out there replacing all the ceiling tiles, probably me to do it, to make sure it all happens, and put it back together so it looks nice again. We put ceiling tiles in 6 or 8 months ago too, and if we have another rain event before it gets fixed, that's what we'll do again. Until we can get the roof fixed and keep the water out of there, we're gonna have to do something. What I can't do in any of that is reduce the aggravation factor. This is an aggravation. That's what I have as a plan.
Sure. You mentioned that, you asked 3 different ones to send in a bid. I mean, do we put that out for bid for any commercial or any business around that has the ability to do that, and just instead of contacting individuals to bid, I think we need to open it up to, you know, who's licensed to do that type of work.
The only reason I called those people is Ben Ewing did the work over them, so on that one, I did that one. The, O'Neill, Roofing out of Lake City, they bid on the solid waste building. And I just looked in the phone book to try somebody could do both of those in Tallahassee and found them. Other than knowing Ben, I don't know the other guys at all. I think that's a good idea.
Rick, is this is it gonna be a 2-part bid, a gutter and or the roof, or some combination, or is this gonna be a one?
I've asked for individual prices. I would prefer that it not be awarded to 2 separate people.
Sure.
And I've asked for that specifically to help with the individual prices, on that, so we would do it that way. I think that's the way we ought to advertise it, is probably for a
We just
single
need to
price.
nail down the scope of the work that's gonna be required.
Right.
Yeah.
And the scope of work would be basically the same as what we did on the other one, plus the gutters and the flashing underneath that, so that's fairly simple. I don't wanna have one guy do the gutter and the other guy do the ceiling, and then if it leaks, they do this, the other guy did it. One guy.
I'm just saying, in fact, that it becomes, the money becomes a factor, and we have to say, okay, all we can do is the gutter at this time.
Then we'll know what that price is.
That's why I was asking if it would be a 2-part, in case we had to do that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
As Rick pointed out, I got a phone call from, Emerald Green, or Parsons, the other day, about the tiles and the water in our office at the chamber. And I found out what had happened. Of course, none of us expected a 12 to 14-inch rain, and I dare say we haven't had one in the last 10, 15 years like that. That said, I did reach out to Mr. Rutherford and Rick, and I also talked to Mr. Washington, and I'd like to ask him to explain, I think we do have the money to do that, probably, and like Rick said, we probably are looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60. I think we would need to get, like Commissioner Davis said, every available roofing company that would like to bid on it, not just the three, but, Mr. Washington has pointed out that TDC, that their money specifically addresses,
Possibly.
go ahead,
I'm
Mr.
sure
Washington.
possibly, I believe there's a way that,
Yeah.
that CDC can pay for this. I'm asking
Are
for
we,
the attorney's opinion on that. But
are we self-insured on this stuff, or?
That's the other thing I was gonna point out.
Well, yeah, that's a
Look at
good
the way
question.
insurance goes. I haven't
Yes.
looked into that, but I can do that prior to.
That'd
the
be
next
interesting if we, I'm
Yeah.
sure we would,
See if
we're
we
not
can-
self-insured, would have insurance and what that deductible would be,
meeting. Exactly.
and whether it covers that type of
Good point.
damage.
But he explained to me yesterday evening about the TDC money. I'd like him to address the board on that.
Also, while he's looking that up, during this meeting, I noticed where Nancy Plank from Soil and Water had emailed me a bunch of pictures, from her and Buck Carpenter's offices. And so, I know y'all haven't had a chance to look at those yet, but I was forwarding them to y'all so that you could kind of see the kind of damage they're talking about that's down there.
Right.
And I guess those repairs are totally belong to the county since it's a state-owned building?
And yes, it would be our responsibility.
That's part of our.
Our
Yeah,
agreement.
at least,
It's leased to us, and we are in charge of the maintenance.
Okay. Any more questions for Mr. Witt?
So by the section that covers tourist development and the tourist development tax, the way I read it, it looked like this would be an expense you could use that tourist development money on. That's why I wanted, the attorney to look at it, because I can't make an opinion on statute, he can, so.
It looks like it right now, but I mean, I need to look at it more, when I'll get the bids back, or the, amounts back. But yeah, it looks promising, and it specifically says we can use it for publicly owned, to, repair, remodel, publicly owned convention centers, those types of things. What you have here probably would fit under that.
I would look at insurance and then
Yeah.
other sources.
In the meantime, I will make sure we put an ad in the paper, Cheryl, can help me with that too. Put an ad in the paper and open it up, put scope of work in there and ask for bids on it.
We've also got a section for RFPs on our website, and we can add it to that as well. We've already got one that emergency management has that's posted, so we can add this one too.
Sounds right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
While we're on that subject, in lieu of that, the legislature, as you are aware, did cut, has been taken out of the legislature, the governor, where the governor has not signed the budget, as some of you may or may not know. But the grant we did put in for the Jeannie Bass did for us, and Mr. Rutherford helped control the plans up for what Rick was referring to, did get taken out of the budget this year. And so we lost that. In lieu of COVID and things like that, I think the chances of us getting any future grants to finish, we did something 5 years ago, and we basically did half of it. Like I said, the administrative offices. We've got a plan to really finish that building off, so we don't have to see this again. I would like to ask that our grant writer, Mr. Dean, take a look at maybe finding other sources that could be pursued.
Yeah.
I think us sitting here waiting for the legislature to give us money, I think we're whistling if we say look for that. I think we're wasting our time. I don't think that's going to happen in the next several years. So I think if possible, if Mr. Dean can find us some other avenues to pursue, I would recommend that we do that.
Absolutely. Any more questions, Mr. Rick?
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Await your bids, Rick.
Sure.
Okay, that brings us to the closing of our meeting, county attorney's report.
Well, and let me ask one thing. y'all, did y'all instruct us to go out for bids, or you won't look for that? 'Cause that's kind of an official thing, if we're gonna go out for bid on the roofing and the gutter work.
Yes.
I think we
We
did.
are to go out for
Yes.
bids.
And of course, that little clause at the bottom, right to refuse.
Well, and so I think what you're saying is, and let me make sure I'm getting this right, is that what we're asking for is one contractor to do both projects, but we want the right to say we will, either award it for both or for just one, just the guttering, right? So but we're not gonna do it where this contract does the guttering and this contract does.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Yes, we can certainly do that.
And we, hopefully we can do the whole thing, you know, and not do the Band-Aid, but we don't know till we get the figures back, where we're at. Okay.
But otherwise, I don't have anything, unless y'all.
I do want, where are we at on the environmental attorney advertisement?
That was,
It's been advertised.
Okay.
And firms have until August to submit, but it has been advertised.
Okay.
That's on the website.
On the website and on the.
It was advertised in the paper and it was submitted through the Florida Bar Gate.
Right.
So it's following its usual pattern at this point. Okay. Mr. Billy, you have anything from the clerk's office?
I should have brought with me, and I apologize for that. That was totally my fault, and I completely forgot about them. There's your audits. Take a look at them, like I said, if you have any questions. So I've got the note. Grab one more here. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. I really did need to bring them over and forgot about it.
Okay. Ms. Pickles, anything from the county manager's office?
Nope, I was on an import call yesterday. Yesterday's topic was mainly about broadband. But they're still trying to work toward having a report to submit to the state in October. And right now, they're still working on mapping and developing areas where, counties are asked to look and see where they definitely don't want it to go through, areas that are okay, but we would prefer not, areas that are wide open, sure, bring it here. So there's still a lot of discussion about that, so an actual final route has not been determined as of yet.
Okay, any questions of Ms. Pickles? Okay. Now we'll, commissioners report, we'll start with Commissioner Kelly.
I have none. Pass.
Commissioner Martin.
I don't have anything.
Today, Commissioner Moore.
I'll yield my time.
The only thing I want to remind everyone, we will not have a meeting next Wednesday. Since, I will be here all by myself to sign if it's required.
Can they does there have to be a resolution for that actually, or can they vote for him to be able to do that next week?
He just signed the resolution.
There's still a written resolution.
Yeah, you just have to sign the resolution.
Now, one thing, if I could, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just to clarify, y'all have approved the interlocal agreement on the building inspection services. Now, that's, we have to get back a signed interlocal agreement from the cities to keep doing that service after Monday. So it's not just that we'll automatically do it after Monday, we've got to get back a signed interlocal agreement from both of those municipalities to keep doing that part. Okay, and then that would be, just like we were discussing with Renee, if we've got a permit in-house, we would keep doing that, but you wouldn't accept new applications.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm sure, pretty sure I was, well understood it, that the town of Lee approved the agreement last Tuesday a week ago. So we just need to have a signed document for the town of Lee.
So just so everyone knows, we will not meet again next Wednesday. We will have our regular meeting on the 24th. At 6 o'clock p.m. Nothing else to come, we stand adjourned.